force. Any change there at all, Hampton?
Jack and Liz, not so far tonight. As you just mentioned, with the deadline less than about 5 hours away, the President and Congress are standing shoulder to shoulder. And tonight, the head of the United Nations made one last appeal to Iraq to avoid war.
I therefore urge President Saddam Hussein to commence, without delay, the total withdrawal of Iraqi forces from Kuwait. Once this process is well underway, I wish to assure him, on the basis of understandings that I have received from governments at the highest level, that neither Iraq nor its forces will be attacked by those arrayed in the international coalition against his country. I have every assurance, once again from the highest levels of government, that with the resolution of the present crisis, every effort will be made to address in a comprehensive manner the Arab-Israeli conflict, including the Palestinian question.
Except for a brief photo opportunity, President Bush huddled today with national security staff. The president took a 5-minute walk by himself around the south lawn of the White House this morning, and a spokesman described Mr. Bush as being at peace with himself. A final decision on when to go to war reportedly has not been made. In Washington and across the country, thousands of anti-war protesters are urging the president to seek a peaceful end to the crisis. More than 24 demonstrators were arrested across the street from the White House. A short while ago, NBC Nightly News reported that the president plans to be sound asleep at midnight. And a short while ago, we spoke with Virginia Senator John Warner, who says in his gut feeling is that Saddam Hussein may make 24 to 48 hours, wait that is, before making some kind of a move. A gut feeling, which is about all we have to go on right now. Reporting live in Washington, I'm Hampton Pearson. Jack and Liz?
Okay, Hampton, thank you.
Pictures from Baghdad today showed a nation ready for war. Thousands took part in a massive anti-American rally in the Iraqi capital. Egyptian radio said the protest was closely controlled by government security forces. The British and American flags were burned, and President Bush was called a criminal.
The situation can be no more tense tonight than on the front lines in the Gulf.
Tonight, we're going to take you live to Saudi Arabia. Linda Vester, a reporter, joins us there live. Linda, we talked a couple of hours ago. What is now the feeling? It's almost 4 o'clock in the morning. Can you feel the tension begin to rise where you're located?
Well, certainly among the journalists here who are watching all the news developments from the United States very closely, and we just learned that the Iraqi radio is being jammed by U.S. forces, which is considered a prelude to an attack. We also hear that there are some B-52 bombers head to some undisclosed location in the Middle East. These are both very ominous signs. And also, the Saudi King Fahd just made a last-minute appeal to Saddam Hussein to withdraw from Kuwait. So we keep hearing these last-minute appeals from some people and now from the Saudi king. We just don't know how effective that will be.
Describe what's going on around you right now and what has been going on at that military base where you are the last few hours.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. There was just a plane flying overhead, and
I heard
that was headed.
I heard that plane. I'll repeat if you can hear. Describe what has been going on over the last 12 hours in the military operation where you are.
Well, in terms of troop movements, we don't get to see a whole lot. The military is slowly but surely squeezing off press access to the military, which seems to indicate that they are hunkering down for anything that could happen. What we have seen on the roads are a number of American M1 tanks heading north toward the border, which to me at least indicates that we are bolstering our positions and in no way backing off.
If you're near oil refineries, what sort of precautions are Americans taking there to make sure that Iraqi jets don't come and strafe the facilities there?
Actually, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what some of the oil companies, or the oil company Aramco, has been doing here to protect some of its employees. They've been passing out gas masks to every single one and absorbing the cost themselves. And they have an evacuation plan for these people in case things do happen.
Reporter Linda Vester in Saudi Arabia, thank you for bringing us this report, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
For the relatives of the men and women now stationed in Saudi Arabia, this will be a very long night, one of waiting and watching and, of course, hoping that war can somehow be avoided. Eyewitness News reporter Joe Shortsleeve has the story of one South Shore family whose son is part of Operation Desert Shield.
At the Coburn family home in Rockland, the whole family hasn't had dinner together in over 5 months. 20-year-old Scott Coburn, an Air Force pilot, has been in the desert of Saudi Arabia since the first week of August. His mother, Arlene Coburn, has spent a great deal of time forming support groups, which help families deal with the separation, their fears and emotions. As a family, though, they support President Bush, and they feel the United States is in good hands because Scott is over there. The Coburns have been nice enough to let us into their home on this critical night in their lives. Dave, if we could start with you, Scott's father. You told me before that you're a strong supporter of President Bush and that you were a little bit upset the way the Massachusetts delegation voted against the first strike resolution. As the hours slip away here and it looks more and more like your son might be fighting, are you still a strong supporter?
Yeah, I think I am, Joe, and I think what you have to remember is that being a supporter of the president doesn't necessarily mean that you're a supporter of the war. It doesn't really matter why we're there. Oil, the Palestinian issue, that, to me, it doesn't matter. The problem is we are there. And I think that we have to do everything that we can possibly do to help the kids and the people who are there. And going against Mr. Bush, I just don't think up until the 15th is a viable issue.
Who's more nervous tonight, your son Scott, who's in Saudi Arabia, or yourself?
Probably me. Scott's usually, okay.
Yeah. Arlene, you've admitted to me that this has been very hard on you since Scott left in October. Give me an idea what's going through the minds of mothers across the country tonight as this deadline draws near.
Depends on the length of the time. I think their loved ones have been over there, but in contrast to someone I talked to this afternoon whose son just left the other day, he was telling me he doesn't want war. I said, I don't want war either, but I'm living through a hell. I cannot take 5 more months. And I try to estimate the amount of pain and the disruption that has gone on in my life and in the lives of my family, and imagine what it has done to the troops over there. And I say, this is not the hour to march. Come on, let's support what's going on, because they can't separate anti-war marchers. They don't see it as being anti-war. They see it as anti what they're trying to do.
Okay, all right. I want to thank you folks very much for letting us into your home tonight, and I'm sure that you told me last night was sleepless. I'm sure that for all the families across the country that there will be many sleepless nights this week as events continue to unfold in the Persian Gulf. Live in Rockland, I'm Joe Shortsleeve. Back to Jack and Liz in the studio.
Okay, Joe, our thoughts are with that family and all of the families who are closely connected. Thank you.
And when we return, are U.S. forces really ready for war? What is the threat to New Englanders if war breaks out? We'll speak with a special assistant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
And we'll hear some strong words from the daughter of Anwar Sadat as to why she feels Saddam Hussein must be stopped.
This is not the Palestinian issue. This is not an issue of a just case that he's trying to present to the world. This is pure theft to some oil fields, and he never thought that the world was going to stand for him like that.
It's not just fresh, it's Contadina fresh.
Before I decided which car to buy, I looked around for the best deal. Toyota Corolla. Sure, price was important, but compared to other 4-doors in its class, Corolla's low repair cost and best resale value convinced me. I mean, compared to Ford Tempo, Corolla could save us thousands, and that's important. because I got better things to spend my money on.
See your New England Toyota dealer today for Toyota value. It's the best deal going.
The multinational forces lined up against Saddam Hussein include many of his Arab neighbors. Camelia Sadat, the daughter of the late Egyptian leader Anwar Sadat, says many Arabs underestimated Saddam in the past until they realized too late the potential of his threat.
He's very mad. He's not crazy.
While Saddam Hussein has been compared to Hitler and described as insane, Camelia Sadat believes he is simply a ruthless man with his back up against the wall.
He knows the whole world is against him now. He knows that he's not going to escape this situation no matter what. Whether the Arabs want him out. His people want him out. The West wants him out. Israel wants him out. So if the Arabs don't finish him, someone else, you know, is going to do it.
A threat on his life is nothing new for Saddam. Reportedly, there have been frequent attempts to kill him long before he invaded Kuwait. Camelia Sadat believes Saddam Hussein is very comfortable with death, even his own.
The last report I read of him, that he had the cyanide pill on his body. He sleeps with his gun. He gave orders to his private guard, who is a cousin of his, if he doesn't finish himself, to finish him. So he's a man, you know, we're dealing now with a suicidal man.
Saddam Hussein sprang on the Iraqi political scene in 1959. During the same time, Camelia Sadat's father was finding his own way to power in Egypt. But while Anwar Sadat would capture the world's attention with his noble attempt to make peace with Israel, Saddam Hussein was building a reputation of terror and ruthlessness. Saddam's first political job was reportedly that of assassin and torturer. His rise to absolute power was bolstered by family ties and his unflinching brutality.
He was never involved in the Palestinian wars or in the Israeli wars. He never shot a bullet during the Arab-Israeli conflict. He was never involved. It was Syria, it was Egypt, it was Jordan. He was never involved. His country was never involved, and his country never supported or did anything to the Palestinian cause. But this is, you know, this is how he trades with it now, to gain the support of the masses, of those who don't understand. He thinks of himself today leading the Arab world. Of course, what confirmed that was the 8 years war with Iran. His army gotten bigger and bigger, you know, and gotten stronger.
Sadat says the Arab world supported Hussein in that war because they thought he was the lesser evil.
As a person, you know, who's a little thief, and he grew to be a bigger thief, you know, bragging of situations, you know, and, you know, go and steal you and then tell you, well, listen, you know, I stole you to protect you from another thief that was going to take more than I took. And that's how he dealt with the Arab world all the time. Unfortunately, at that time, Iran presented such a threat that the West supported him, the Arabs supported him, everybody supported him. So it became like he believed that he's not a thief. He believed that he is right.
There's a lot of concern about the fragile nature of the Arab coalition. Do you think that's a good way to describe it? Do you think it's a fragile coalition?
I don't consider it fragile at all. Number one, I know that all the moderate Arabs today, they are agreeing 100% that Saddam Hussein has to go. But each has his own problem. Time is working against the coalition. If we talk that, you know, there is a problem with the coalition, it's going to be time. Time is against the coalition. The more time passes, the more it's going to get fragile.
Joining us tonight is Kurt Campbell, Special Assistant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, who is now teaching at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard.
Kurt, maybe I'm missing out on something, but Iraq, it would seem to me, is a nation without hundreds of millions of people. Do they have some kind of a superpower army ready for us here that we've missed out on? How do you assess them as a military danger?
Yeah, well, Jack, remember, they've been at war for the last decade. This is perhaps the most battle-hardened country on the face of the planet. They have almost a 1 million-man army. They are in a total period of complete generation. They're ready to go. They're on the ground. Yes, this is a real threat.
How prepared do you think the U.S. military is? We've been talking a lot about the airstrikes versus the ground strikes. How prepared are we?
Well, Liz, when you talk about preparedness, of course, there are many parts of our military machine. The air power, our air forces, were ready very soon after the planes arrived in theater in October, November. The Marines are ready, the Navy are ready. The difficult part of our campaign strategy are the Army forces, particularly the tanks. We had many good reports coming to us today about the fact that tanks are still arriving at the ports. They still need to be painted, and many of the troops, particularly the Army troops, have not been in theater very long. They haven't been briefed well. They haven't been acclimated. It's going to take them, again, if we're talking about total military preparedness, it's going to take still a few more days or weeks. Whether we have that time or the military has that time is a question I think is going to be answered sooner than we'd like to see.
Well, let me have you look in your crystal ball. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think the timetable of what's going to happen?
Well, first of all, we've heard so much from experts the last couple of months, and it's interesting to see how wrong many of us have been, including myself. I really believe that Saddam Hussein would back down. I think many people believed, even people who wanted war, were concerned that Saddam Hussein would back down because we wouldn't be able to have the possibility to go in. I think everyone was surprised by how swiftly any chance of talks were cut off. We heard earlier today that even before the French minister delivered his plea for some kind of linked peace conference, that Saddam Hussein said, we're not interested. We're not interested in any kind of U.S. or UN-sponsored or French-brokered program which will bring some sort of face-saving device.
No, go on.
From my own view, I thought that we looked towards a conflict in the military towards the latter part of this month or probably into February. However, there's a new political spin on this. I think the mood in this country is one of tremendous concern. I feel it in the Pentagon. I feel it with the people I deal with. Complete apprehension.
What's going to happen? We're all braced for this midnight deadline. What do you see as a possible strategy?
Well, if I look into my crystal ball, again, with all reservations, I think conflict is going to come earlier rather than later. I think it might come in the next couple of days. I think it will be a massive military campaign. And the thing that I'd like to underline is I'm not sure Americans are prepared for the kind of military campaign we're talking about. This isn't going to be the kind of war that we can ignore during the day and just turn our TV on at night. It will affect us. It will affect our economy. It will affect the way we see the world. Perhaps it will change the way we travel in the world.
We have less than a minute. Are we going to be able to knock out Iraq as a military power relatively quickly?
Absolutely. I think we will be able to destroy Iraq. What does that mean? Does that mean we will win the war? I think that's a question that has not yet been answered. President Bush has stated very clearly what was necessary for peace in terms of Saddam Hussein withdrawing from Kuwait. However, for obvious reasons, it's very difficult to talk about war aims. We've had very little discussion about what, in fact, is our interest in terms of long-term stability in the region.
Okay. Professor Kurt Campbell, Special Assistant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and a teacher at Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, thank you for joining us. And you're saying in the next 2 days.
Thank you.
When we return from the kids in school to jobs on the line, we're all affected by what happens in the Gulf.
We're going to share the thoughts of folks in one New England community where the Gulf crisis is always on their minds.
Why do they have to be over there?
So if Iraq doesn't get out, they will have to force him out.
Okay, and we hope what?
That he comes home safely.
10 years down the road, I'd like to be in business for myself. Already got my security force. That's right, partner. We got us a lifetime contract. Here's my part of the bargain.
Alpo. More meat protein than 10 pounds of steak fortified with all the vitamins and minerals dogs need to eat well and be well into the future.
Now, there's something you got to understand, Max. Security guard's supposed to be me, okay?
My son Jeff, one busy guy, but he will drop everything for Campbell's Chunky Soup. With delicious chunks of vegetables and meat, Chunky's quick to satisfy, so Jeff can pick up right where he left off.
Campbell's Chunky Soup, the satisfying stuff that keeps you going.
We're still trying to make Heinz home-style gravy just like homemade.
He says, nice try.
But we make it with real beef just like yours.
He says it's close.
Heinz home-style gravy, so close to homemade.
There may be a sense of helplessness in the air tonight for those on the home front. who can only wait and watch what transpires in the Gulf.
In the final days before the deadline, Bill Shields went to Leominster to see how one community is coping with the fear and the possibility of war.
No.
It's the usual morning crowd at Leroy's Diner in Leominster. But today, the newspapers and conversations are filled with talk of war.
And the bottom line, I think, is still oil and money, you know.
At a corner table, 3 electricians and 3 different opinions.
I mean, I don't really see any reason we should be over there.
The U.S. ought to think about going in there right now, you know.
Before the deadline.
Right, before the deadline.
We don't ever agree with him anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I think United States is playing too big of a partner. You know, it's too many. There's too many other countries that should be involved, I think.
Behind the counter, but within easy earshot of all the talk, Donna Stebbins goes about her work. Like thousands of other New England families, Donna Stebbins has a special interest in the Persian Gulf. Her 31-year-old son, Don, is now on duty in Saudi Arabia with the Air Force.
And he feels that they should be there. He feels that President Bush is right in doing what he's doing, and I guess I have to go along with it as much as I don't want to. I don't want to see a war.
Can you tell them what they are and where you got them? Patches from Uncle Donnie.
Across town, Kenny Stebbins proudly displays his uncle's uniform patches and his uncle's feelings about being in Saudi Arabia.
If Iraq doesn't get out, they will have to force him out.
These 6-year-olds are surprisingly informed and shockingly aware of the possibilities.
There is a war. What does that mean? What's going to happen? It's kind of scary. You get dying, your family doesn't even know. And also, they don't even know you're even going up in heaven.
I think they're probably getting a lot of feedback at home. I think probably their parents are concerned about it.
At Leominster High, laughter still fills the hallways, but current events classes are consumed by news from the Gulf.
Do you support the posture that President Bush has taken?
You have to realize that Hussein isn't just going to stop here. This is my opinion. I don't think he'll stop after this accomplishment. I think that if he's not stopped now, then what's going to stop him when he's more powerful?
These students are seniors. Some are 18. They have a special interest in the Gulf, particularly if there's a protracted war.
Some of you are facing possible draft. Would you be willing to...
I'm already signed up to go.
You're already signed up to go?
Yep. I'd go.
You would go?
Mm-hmm.
Some are filled with youthful bravado, but it's anxiety that now grips Donna Stebbins, and it runs throughout this working-class city. Many people do not want war, yet they feel it's inevitable.
There's a feeling of, you know, there's a deadline coming, and there's no real sense of going crazy about it yet, but we're kind of getting ready to feel, I think there's that kind of free-floating anxiety.
You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in this town, young or old, who is not concerned about the situation in the Middle East. And while some have emotional ties to the Persian Gulf, for others, it's a matter of money. They fear they will not be able to make ends meet if there's a war.
Caution is a key word here, and it's just a matter of watching very closely day to day what happens in the world and planning and being able to react quickly.
They make hundreds of thousands of combs and brushes here. Plastic combs produced from oil-based materials. If war breaks out, the price of oil will skyrocket and perhaps jeopardize some of the 60 jobs here.
Well, we worry about it, but we've seen a 25% increase in the cost of the raw material.
Some are out of jobs and some are afraid for their jobs. So there's that level of unease underneath everything.
The deadline is hours away. Young and old, rich and poor, they know it. And they also know whichever tact world leaders take, this city will be affected.
We are at the brink.
A lot of people are gonna die.
I am petrified, to be honest with you.
Bill Shields, TV4 Eyewitness News, Leominster.
And as the clock ticks away toward the deadline, that is it for this Eyewitness News special report on the Gulf crisis. We will, of course, keep you up to the latest developments throughout the evening.
Fellas, you want to pinch yourself to realize this is actually happening.
We'll be monitoring the situation. We'll have full details on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. Then tonight at 11:35, NBC News will have another special report as we continue to monitor those frightening events going on in the Persian Gulf. For now, thank you for watching.